Good morning and a very happy Easter to you all. It's wonderful for us to be able to join together in some way on this very special day, even if we're not able to gather together in church as we would normally be doing. I hope your day is filled with joy in some way, be that through chocolate Easter egg hunts or a time spent just looking at the wonders of the world out of the window. Like so many people, since all this has begun, I've spent a disproportionate amount of my time, I think, online, looking at news sites, hoping for some latest update, looking at Facebook and staying in touch with friends and family. And although I know that it's really important to be present with the people we find ourselves with, present in the moment and time, I value my online community too. They give me so much, not just during this sort of pandemic outbreak, but generally and in life. I find myself able to access things that I would never normally encounter in life. And I was particularly struck by a phrase that I scrolled past the other day. It was there on a minimalist site that I followed during my very unsuccessful Marie Kondo phase. And it said this: when everything goes back to normal, whatever normal is, remember to stop and think, what sort of normal do you want to go back to? And I thought that was something that it was really helpful for us to hold. It's a choice. What sort of normal do you want to go back to? For all of us, normal will be different. For some people after this outbreak, normal will be different because they'll have buried their loved ones. For some people, normal will be different because they'll have experienced the virus, perhaps even experienced time in ICU units and on respirators. And then they'll have recovered and their perspective will inevitably have changed. For some people, normal will be different just because they've spent months on their own without contact with the outside world, and inevitably they'll have spent some of that time thinking and reflecting on their life and what matters to them. For all of us, it will be different. And of course, these moments of change happen to us all the time. They don't have to come with a pandemic. Anybody who's ever held a newborn baby or held the hand of a dying man will know that there are points in life, there are times that teach us that there are certain things that simply don't matter. They reset us, if you like. They make us think about what we value and what we want to be as people. For me, one of the most profound experiences that I had was a death of a man at exactly the same stage in family life and work and career as James and I were. I didn't even know him particularly well, but it enabled me to make better and braver decisions about how I wanted to live my life, what I wanted to do with it, where my priorities ought to lie. And we'll all have moments of like that in our history. We'll all be able to call to mind a time when we thought, actually, this shows me what really matters and what I really want to value and what I really think I should be doing. The difference, of course, is that this is a collective experience. All of us are going through this at the same time. And so we have a chance to choose together what our new normal will be, not just in terms of our individual life, but in terms of our whole society, of our churches, of how we are as a people. The Easter story that we read this morning in John's Gospel is just such a story. It's one of perspectives change and realities opened up. The women go to a borrowed tomb where Jesus has been laid. It's stashed in there quickly because nothing could be done on the Sabbath. So early in the morning, on the first day of the week, in John's account, it's Mary Magdalene who goes back to the tomb. And she's there to make sure that Jesus has a proper burial, anointed and cared for and loved. When they get there, the body isn't there, and she rushes to go and get the other disciples and tell them. They go in and they see the empty tomb, and they return home. But Mary isn't ready to move on yet. She stays and she sits outside that empty tomb and she weeps. She cries. She's not ready to go home. She doesn't want to leave that space. And it's there that she meets with the risen Jesus. It's there that Jesus finds her and tells her the incredible news that he is risen, that death has lost its power and that he is alive. Now you might think, quite rightly I suppose, that from that moment on, nothing for Mary Magdalene would ever be the same. She has actually met with the risen Jesus. How can she possibly return to normal? And of course, in many ways, she doesn't. The lives of all those who met and followed and spent time with the risen Jesus were transformed. But over time, they too had good days and bad days. Days lived in the light of that resurrection and days when they were not in a new perspective, when they were bothered by things that, quite frankly, didn't really matter much. Read the book of Acts. It's both reassuring and inspiring. We've approached Easter differently this year, and I will certainly be celebrating it very differently today. But that doesn't matter, because it's just a date in the calendar. The first Easter is what matters. That amazing moment where Mary, quite alone, sat weeping outside an empty tomb and met with Jesus and was given the choice that I think we're given today and every day, whether it's Easter Day or not. Will we live our lives consumed by things that really don't matter? Or will we live life in all its fullness, just as God intended us to? Released from fear, released from guilt, released from social conventions, and free to love God and to love each other with all our soul, with all our mind, and with all our heart. What an amazing normal that would be to choose to return to. So happy Easter. Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. Alleluia.